Basketball Podcast. This is where indie rock meets the NBA's finest. Today is episode 100. I'm super excited about that. It's so crazy to me. I can't believe it's been 100 episodes of talking to musicians and people in the sports media industry and all in between. It's been so amazing. I'm so excited because today's guest for the 100th episode is the legendary Guy Picciotto from Fugazi and Rites. A massive Wizards fan and an all-around punk legend. So I'm so excited to get to his interview. He's super knowledgeable about basketball, and he's got some great stories to tell. But before that conversation, I did want to, reflect a little bit. This whole thing started as a combination of simple mashups of band names and players. And believe it or not, this was 15 years ago. This was, I started this on Tumblr. The first kind of memes being Rilo Kyrie, Bone Iverson, My Morning Jacket, LeBron Ivor. It was on Tumblr, and it was very crude, but I would be really curious to know if anyone listening was on that Tumblr game back then. That was a long time ago. I was in college when I started this, and I took a lot of time off, and then the pandemic happened, and I was bored, and so I brought it back on Instagram. Started doing more of the mashup names, started doing album cover photoshops. I started the podcast. I started half court sessions. I started making merch. I started a Discord, and that community is so awesome. It's still going. I'm still building it. I'm still, got plenty more to do, and it's been really fun doing this. So I can't believe to be at 100 episodes for this. It's been pretty wild. But in reflection of this 100th episode, I wanted to, ask our Discord, some of the highlights and some of the favorite episodes they had, some of their favorite guests. So I just want to shout out a couple of those episodes. In case you haven't listened to, you can always go back and listen. But thinking back to that first episode, it was a fantasy draft. And to have on the first episode, to have TK, Trey Kirby from No Dunks, to have Blake Murphy, who is now a full analyst for the Raptors, and Saman, who, is a Grammy Award-winning, producer, and he is, so important in kind of like the hip-hop world and what he does for, in media and with, being a vocal voice for Palestine. Like, he is such a cool dude. So have that group for the first episode was pretty insane. And then in debut, it was a really funny episode. I go back sometimes and see some of those jokes, and that's a good team right there. I also loved having, some repeat guests, Nick Ewing of Local Natives, Nick Thorburn from the Unicorns and Islands, having, this ritual of having, Small Black come back for the draft every year, which, spoiler, that's coming up. He's coming back for the third year of that. A bunch of people definitely said, the Playlist Makers episode to get Dan Ozzie and Ian Cohen and Josh in there and to make a playlist together was a really fun experience, and I hope you guys liked it too. It was a great playlist too. It was kind of all over the place. Some people said Dan from the Wonder Years just because he was a great storyteller, and that is true. He is a great storyteller. He knows how to tell a story. Steven from Pup being the ultimate Raptors fan. I'm not just going to name every episode because that's kind of pointless, but I just wanted to reflect on that and just, talk about some of my favorite moments and some of the Discord's favorite moments. And it's been a lot of fun, and I'm excited to keep going. But hey, happy 100. So let's get to our main event, and let's hear my talk with Guy Picciotto. But yeah, thank you so much for joining, man. I know that we had talked previously about, maybe when the Wizards win a championship, but I think we might be waiting a little bit if we did that.
Well, I don't know, man.
We'll see.
Things are looking up.
You got a pretty solid draft pick coming in. So
yeah, unless they do something ridiculous, I think we might have a.
You can never rule it out.
No.
Great. So, just starting things off with a little bit music first. The thing I like to ask when everyone joins me is, I'd love to know what kind of things you've been listening to lately, whether it's returning to old favorites or anything new you've discovered.
I think there's a really nice record by this musician Zoamba here in New York. They were known, I think, in the past for playing saxophone, and now they're doing music, writing songs with guitar, and they just got signed to Matador, and I think it's a really interesting record. Um, I would definitely recommend that. I would recommend. I've been playing with this guy, Jim White, who was the drummer in a band called the Dirty Three, and he put out two solo records on Drag City label that I think are really, really amazing and interesting. That I helped work on, and I think people should check those out. So those would be two things I'd mention.
Awesome. Awesome. Uh, and I guess, off that note, you talked about, playing drums with him, whatever. I'd love to know what does music kind of look like in your life today? Are you still playing? Like what is the role that music kind of plays in your life today?
Well, I can say since I was like 14 years old that music has basically been my, basic reason for being, probably, I think. So, and it hasn't really changed. I mean, Fugazi stopped playing shows. That was kind of the last band that I was officially in, I guess. Well, actually, that's not really true. But in 2002, Fugazi stopped playing. And then after that, I started doing much more production work. And then there was I don't know, maybe a 4 or 5 year period where I was playing guitar with a musician named Vic Chestnut, who was from Athens, Georgia, and worked on a couple of records, played on a couple of records with him, and went on tour with him. And I guess that would probably be the last like band that I was in. He passed away, and unfortunately that stopped. But if he had not passed away, I think I probably could have been completely happy doing that for the rest of my life, because I think he was one of the greatest songwriters and musicians that ever lived, really, honestly. And so
Sure.
when
Yeah.
playing with him was just hugely important to me. So that was great. But since then, I've been mostly producing. I've got a small studio, and I work with various bands. I've worked with a band called Xylurus White. A lot of the stuff I've been doing recently has been with the drummer Jim White. But lately, he put together a trio, and with him on drums and vocals, and a keyboardist named Colleen Burke from Detroit playing keyboards, and I'm playing bass for the first time in my life, which is not my normal instrument, and I'm
Sure.
kind of a dilettante, but I'm really enjoying it, even though I seem to have lost like feeling in my fingertips. So I'm not sure, because we were practicing last week. I have never played bass that extensively in my life, and now I'm feeling it. But
Yeah, I started on bass, and those strings, man, they're way thicker than you expect.
yeah, and it's like a lot of, if you play for 7 hours a day, which was what we
Yeah.
were doing, and it's just like, but I love it. I love it.
Awesome.
It's cool to be learning a new instrument and getting, because you really have to think about it differently. Like all my life, I've been the kind of the messiness of guitar allowed me to sing and play with energy and stuff like that. But with bass, there's a whole different role, kind of, So it's like there's a sort of, you know, there's a discipline to it that I'm unaccustomed to, and I'm trying to get my head around. So, but I really, really like it. And playing with Jim is amazing. I think we have a really good. I mean, we've been working together for, I don't know, over a decade now, and so I think we have a really good feel for what each other is doing. So it's fun to actually play as opposed to just being the producer and arranger on his records. So
Yeah, and I mean, you come from such a background in punk, and today, does you find yourself like weaving through various genres and stuff? Like it's kind of becoming more broad, I guess. This is called indie basketball. Indie has kind of become a broad term in itself. Do you find yourself kind of like moving around to different genres?
I've never been a person who thought much about genre outside
Sure.
of like. I mean, to me, the term punk or whatever, punk rock, is an enormous umbrella, and I think
Yeah.
that from the age of 12 on, I've identified myself as a punk, like a punk musician and a punk human being. I mean, I think because that was kind of, I think it was the thing that kind of most it just took over my life in a way that was, similar, I think, to like, I guess, like a religious awakening or something like that, where I just became kind of you know it gave my life meaning, and I feel like it continues to give my life meaning. But in terms of as a style of music, I've never really thought of that it that way. I think of it more as a sense of freedom and a sense of pushing back against cultural forces that are trying to keep
Yeah.
people down. So I think that's really the way I look at it.
Yeah, I've talked with people before, and just like the term punk, you could be hip hop is quite punk in a lot of its ways. There's a lot of
Well, certainly
genres.
the birth of hip hop is, very, there's an extreme parallel there, and I
Yeah,
think we felt very certainly the beginning of Fugazi and the bands I was in right before Fugazi, we were very, very affected and influenced by, Schoolie D in Philadelphia, or when Public Enemy, when they came out, we would be getting tapes of, like, DJ Red Alert's radio shows in New York City, and just that early moment of hip hop was very underground and was very rebellious, and the spirit felt very similar to me.
yeah. Even the dynamic in Fugazi of having those kind of two vocalists kind of bouncing off each other felt very kind of like hip hop troupe sort of thing.
Well, it was very Chuck D, Flavor Flav, and I think it
Yeah,
was. I mean, it definitely was something, because initially, when the band was forming, it was the two piece, which was Ian and Joe, and Brendan and I were in a totally separate band, the drummer and I. And that band broke up, and Brendan kind of got poached by Ian and Joe, and I was kind of on the outside looking in, and I couldn't really see a role for myself in it at first because it seemed like they'd already kind of like created a sound. And but that model of the two voices and the two perspectives from Public Enemy actually was sort of a way to think about how it could work, because Ian and I had both been kind of whatever frontmen in the bands that we'd been in before, but the idea of having two of them, it took a little, work to wrap my head around it, but once I did, it was really, I think, really effective, and in a lot of ways created it's like a dialectic within the group that I think makes it really strong. So yeah, it was cool.
yeah, for sure. And with Fugazi kind of being having this kind of lore behind it almost, especially within like the DIY scene itself. And maybe the answer is just simply no. But is there things that people have gotten wrong over the years about like kind of like the lore of the band, or have you noticed things that there's like misconceptions that have happened and evolved over the years?
Yeah, I mean really, I think a lot of it, which I in a lot of ways I think is cool, because like pre-internet, everything was misconception. I mean, like
True.
it was just like, who the fuck knew anything about anything? You would always build these myths about groups from overseas, and it was just like
It's a
every
game of telephone. Yeah.
yeah, it was a game of telephone, and everything was a lot of the mistakes you made about your perceptions of things actually lent to your own kind of unique take on things, because
Yeah.
you thought you were emulating something which actually didn't exist. So that was cool. With Fugazi, I think there was a lot of misconception. I think about the group being like strident or humorless, or I think that I think the seriousness with which we took the effort, or the band itself, was mistaken for like kind of a sense of self righteousness or over seriousness in terms of everything that we did, which was really not the case. I think we were trying to create a foundation. We'd been in, I mean, frankly, we'd both Ian and Brendan and Joe as well. We'd all been in many groups. Like, I'd been in bands since I was like 14. By the time I was 22, I actually was selling my gear because I thought it was all over with, but with Fugazi, the idea was like, maybe we can create something that will actually last longer than a year or 2 years. So all of the stuff that we took seriously about the way the band functioned was really a way to try to create a vehicle that could, like, make it down the road a bit. So it was like, that was really all it was. And we made this movie Instrument, like, which in some ways I thought helped correct maybe some of the misperceptions about the band, because it just, gave people an opportunity to see a bit more of us, I guess, because we didn't really do any we were very strict about not doing, videos or, mass publications and stuff. So, the way we wanted people to get the information was to come to the shows. And we toured as extensively as we possibly could, usually like 6 months a year, and to just bring it to the people. But we did realize a lot of times that, people would come to the shows with just this completely weird ass idea about what was supposed to be going on. And I also think I think the number one thing that kind of bothers me now is just a lot of people think that we had some kind of we policed the crowd at our shows in a way that was like too domineering, like because, but I think people don't really understand that we actually celebrated dancing and we celebrated interactions with the crowd and we actually tried to put everything on the same level. But the one thing that we didn't tolerate was violence. And I think in the people don't really, people go to independent shows now. I don't think they can really conceive of what the violence it shows was like in the 80s and 90s. It was a completely different scenario, particularly in certain parts of the country. And I mean, some of the stuff we saw was like really, really intense. And so I think people might think, oh, they're overreacting. But, we had just seen a lot of really heinous stuff, and we were doing our best to try to monitor it in a way. And we love to be able to try to create a room that didn't need security. So we wanted to be the ones who were kind of policing the room. We didn't want to have security there because we knew that actually created a whole other set of problems. So I think sometimes people misunderstood that, but otherwise, I
Yeah.
think for the most part, we had really great fan base, and people seemed to get the message. So
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of Rites of Spring, I mean, I know you have kind of a complicated relationship with the term emo, but over time, I feel like we have these quote unquote waves of emo happening. Do you find Rites of Spring getting kind of like new generations coming in to discover the music kind of lately as kind of those subgenres of emo have evolved?
yeah, my own personal feeling about that word has changed a lot over the years. I think initially it just was kind of baffling because we just thought we were a punk band, so we didn't really understand what was going on. But now that the term has been around for decades and decades, now I can kind of look at it with a little bit more objectivity, I think, and just see it as like though it's still confusing to me a little bit because it's similar in the sense that it really encompasses an enormous amount of stylistic differences and stuff. So I'm not really sure I understand it necessarily as a genre, but I'm not as defensive or freaked out by it as I was when I was younger. But with Right to Spring, I mean, the truth is we played 20 shows and only 3 of those were outside of Washington D.C. and we made one record and one single. So the fact that anybody is listening to it now is really, really incredible. And I think it's a testament to the power of documenting what you do. Like we were really lucky that there was a label in town, Discord Records, that put our record out and has kept it in print so that for people who do want to check it out, it's always been available. And, it's the legacy of the band was built on word of mouth from 20 shows. That's really what it was. We played. I mean, the band was like just a huge big part of my life, and we played. I mean, I can remember every one of those gigs like like it happened yesterday, and it was those 4 playing with Brendan and Eddie and Mike. I mean, it was a really really it was a really special chemistry, and we did it again in a band called Happy Go Licky, which was basically the same group reforming, and that was the band that preceded Fugazi, and that group also to me was really super intense and super enjoyable experience. I just think that was a special group of people.
Yeah, yeah. And bridging the gap a little bit, I think in terms of live music, I kind of want to ask about the Fugazi show in Philly because obviously such a in retrospect such an iconic moment, iconic photo. Can you tell me about that show a little bit in general?
Well, yeah, I think you're talking about the show with the basketball hoop.
Yeah.
With that photo. Well, first I'll say before I talk about that show, if people want a more in-depth historical perspective on that specific evening, there's a book out, or rather a very small, it's somewhere between a book and a fanzine. It's called Upside Down Punks, and it's written by this guy J. Hunter Bennett. And if you look for it on the internet, Upside Down Punks by J. Hunter Bennett, you can buy it for $7, and it will give you a much more in-depth. And and I think much more interesting perspective on the event because there's a bunch of backstory to how that show came to be that I didn't even know that I
Sure.
learned from reading that fanzine. But really, the thing that's weird about it was very early in the band's story, and there was maybe 40 or 50 people there. It was a very very small show, one of the first out of town shows we'd ever played. We showed up, and it was a promoter who hadn't really done a lot of gigs, so he had kind of like put together a very rickety stage and found a PA and set it up underneath this basketball hoop in a YMCA, and it was awesome. It was awesome what he did, and he like created this great event. But it was we were still getting our legs as a group. Really, we're getting to know each other and how to play. And at that stage of the band, I was still kind of trying to figure out what my role was, and I was filled with a lot of energy. But I was used to playing guitar, but I wasn't playing guitar, so I had all this other. Where do I put the energy? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? It was that kind of feeling. Like I just felt really untethered, and like a balloon that someone had just like let go or something. That's kind of what it felt like. And then just during the show, we were playing Glue Man, which, ultimately that song kind of became it just became like within our set, we did a lot of improvisations, but that was one of the earliest songs where it had this kind of built-in freedom into terms of where it would go and the energy it would unleash and stuff like that. And so, it just was like, I don't really remember, but at some point, I just got up off the bass drum and I was in the hoop, and then and that's then I was just up there. But
Was that just like a product of just being lost in the moment and just
yeah, I mean it was, and it was that whenever we played that song, it was sort of like a trance like weird thing. It just was. It's a very hypnotic riff and very powerful, and the only way I could kind of get into my role in the band was just to really be in the music, just to really sink into it. And so yeah, in the movie, like our movie, we have a clip of it happening, so you can see a video of it in real time. But we cut away before the ending where I fell into the drum set, and so it was a bit ungraceful in terms of it coming down. But I will say though, just as a segue into the basketball thing, like it's high up there. So it's like when
yeah.
you see people dunk, it feels very impressive to me because I've been up there.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, at that time, were you already into basketball, or is that something that came to you kind of later on in life?
Well, to be honest, like I got into basketball. I think my initial entry into basketball was like in 1977, 78, the Washington Bullets won the championship.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal in DC. And it was a team. It was like Phil Chenier and Wes Unseld and Mitch Kupchak. And it was, everywhere people had these T-shirts of opera singing Valkyrie woman with "It ain't over till the fat lady sings." It was like the big saying, that was like, and I didn't even understand. It was like I was young enough. I was probably, I don't know, 11 or something like that, 11 or 12. And, but like Nils Lofgren had a song on the radio in DC called Bullets Fever that was like being played on constant rotation on all the rock stations. And so there was this enormous groundswell of interest. And I think that's the first time I kind of had the Bullets on my radar, I mean, it's the greatest basketball name of all time. I mean, I think it's like, it's really
kind of a travesty they changed it.
I mean, living in DC during the period where they did change it, I understood why they did that. I mean, it was an incredibly violent time in Washington. So it's like, I think it actually came from a good place, but unfortunately they picked the worst possible replacement name, like a name that had no bearing on literally anything. I mean,
no reality.
I was pushing for the Washington Monuments. That was one that I thought would have been a great, and that was awesome. My fantasy basketball team was always the Washington Monuments, it's like solid. But
imagine also like being a center on the Washington Monuments. I feel like that's
cool.
like a nickname in itself. Yeah.
Yeah. I think people thought it was too static, maybe, like because they don't move, but it's so cool because they're tall, monuments. It's awesome.
Well, we have teams now that are abstractions like the Miami Heats, and anything could be a team name at this point. The Thunder.
But here's the crazy thing. They had like 5 names or 4 or 5 names that they were optioning. One of them was the Wizards. I was like, that's never going to win. But another one was the Sea Dogs. And I was like, where does that even come from? It's like we're not even on the sea, It's like it made no sense. Yeah. It was really terrible. And the Wizards, I mean, there's things about the Wizards as a name that I've kind of come around to. Like, I like their mascot G Wiz. I think he's pretty cool.
Sure.
But I just, I miss the Bullets. I really miss the Bullets. But
I mean, those Bullets jerseys were so good too.
oh my God, they were
The
great.
stripes, yeah.
Yeah, they have the two hands with the basketball for the
Yeah,
L's. I mean,
great
they kind
logo.
of they try to bring back some of that iconography now,
Sure.
but it's. So yeah, I would say that in the mid '70s I started getting interested, and then I think once I had started living in group houses and we would watch basketball pretty frequently, I started to really get into it, and then I think like. And I'm not someone who plays basketball. I'm terrible. I can't shoot.
I was going to ask, did you grow
I'm
up playing or anything?
I'm really bad. I mean, I feel like if someone had just showed me a few things, maybe, but I just wasn't a very sporting person or whatever.
Sure.
I mean, and the few times I've tried to play, I mean, I think maybe I don't know. There's something. I'm a terrible, terrible shot. Terrible, absolutely.
I mean, I
Brick
feel like
everything.
once you're in your kind of like teen years, you're kind of given a choice. Like, you make a decision. Do you want to do music or do you want to do sports?
Yeah,
It's kind of hard to do both, but I feel like later in life, people are kind of bringing it back together and kind of being able to love both at the same time.
yeah. I mean,
Did you?
I love games, man. I'll play
Yeah.
ping pong all night long. It's like if I'd been good at basketball, maybe it's something I like. When I watch it, I appreciate the physicality of it so much, and
Yeah.
I appreciate the. I don't know. I mean, I wish I was good at it, but I'm not.
Same.
But it's funny. Like I guess when Fugazi started making some money, like I was living in a group house. I was renting a basement room for like $250, but we were starting to make some decent money. And what I decided to do, I said this was like in 2001, and I was like, I'm gonna buy season tickets to the Wizards, and I'm gonna buy season tickets to the National Symphony Orchestra at the Kennedy Center. So like, I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna like have the high culture, and I'm gonna have the basketball, and and I was like, I'm treating myself. I'm on the road all the time. I'm really gonna do this thing. So I had season tickets for like, I don't know, 2 years. And I learned having season tickets is like having a second job, because you're like
Sure.
basically like going to games constantly, or else you're trying to get the tickets out to your friends or figure out what to do
Hmm.
with them. But my tickets were on the tunnel right behind where they put the families of the visiting teams. So I
Wow.
just sat there listening to NBA gossip like you couldn't believe, where it was incredible. And it was the year we had the number one draft and we made the mistake of drafting Kwame Brown. And it was the
Ooh.
year that Michael Jordan came back
Yeah.
and
Okay.
on the
Ups
Wizards.
and downs.
But I didn't even know Jordan was going to rejoin the team when I bought the tickets. But then once I bought the tickets, suddenly they were worth $1 billion because
Oh my
Jordan
God. Yeah.
was like playing. And then it was, and he slowly destroyed the Wizards with his late era bullying nonsense. So it was kind of
The
terrible.
way he crushed Kwame Brown's confidence is
It's
phenomenal.
absolutely grotesque, and it was horrible to watch it in real time from the fucking tunnel. I'll tell you, it was
Yeah.
really brutal.
I'm
But
sure, man. I'm sure you also heard a bunch of crazy stuff from the families and just about the players and what's going on in their lives.
man, man, Jordan, not a lot of love, not a lot of love there.
Was there a lot of shit talking between players and families and
It was crazy. I mean,
yeah.
I remember seeing Jalen Rose get evicted from a game there once, and watching him go up the tunnel, just like flipping everyone off. It was pretty great. But I think the era where I was like deepest Wizards was, well, here before that actually, my loyalties got divided because the Detroit Pistons, the year that they won the championship, that was basically the year that the Wizards or the Bullets won the championship because four of their players were Wizards Bullets players that had been
Yes,
traded to
that's
Detroit.
right.
So Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, Rip Hamilton, and Darvin Ham were all from our team. So I was basically watching the inept moves of our, front office win a championship. So, I mean, Ben Wallace in particular, when they got rid of him, because he was an undrafted player that they picked up, and they had him for 3 years, and he was incredible.
He's a Hall
And
of
they,
Famer now.
yeah, and he's a Hall of Famer. It was so the Pistons have always been my kind of second team because I feel like they were just Washington in exile.
For sure. I talked to Travis Morrison from Dismemberment Plan, and he said the exact same thing.
Oh, word.
He was like, yeah, it's. I like the Pistons too because they had all of our players.
Yes. I mean,
It's amazing.
it was brutal, but So I guess the era after that, when Gilbert Arenas joined the Wizards, that was like for me, I think the absolute pinnacle of the funnest games ever. I mean,
For real.
ridiculous entertainer and just an absolute. If he hadn't gotten injured, I mean, there was
And then
stuff that
there was some
happened.
off the court stuff, but I do feel like in general that team with like Karam Butler and even Deshaun Stevenson, like
Deshaun was
was
the
Antoine
coolest.
Jameson.
Yeah.
Good team, very good team.
And entertaining. I mean, the one thing that people probably don't remember because the Cavs kept wiping us out every year in the playoffs, but those Cav Wizards games were really competitive and really funny. Like LeBron would bring Jay-Z to a game and the Wizards would bring Soldier Boy. So they would have like it's like I felt like that was like indicative of where it was at. Okay, you got
Right.
Jay-Z, but we got Soldier Boy who, was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'll admit I might be in the minority, but I actually really love the alternate jerseys they had in that era where they were like black and gold.
Oh yeah, the black and gold ones. Yeah,
Those are
yeah,
really good jerseys, and I feel
yeah.
like pretty underrated.
Yeah.
So are you still staying engaged? Are you still kind of keeping up with the team?
I am keeping up with it. This last year was really hard because it's
Yeah.
been 3 years of tanking, but they got a lot of good young players and it's cool. But I feel like but I will say, like I've been watching the playoffs this year and now with Spurs and I live in New York now, so and there's been New York Knicks teams in the past that I liked, like the Pat Ewing, John Starks era. I was a
Yeah.
big fan of because I went to Georgetown the last year that Pat Ewing was at Georgetown, so I used to see him around campus, and so I always had an affection for him. I love John Starks. This Knicks team doesn't feel like that to me, but if they win, the city will be so happy. So I feel like
Right.
that's cool. But I actually, in terms of players and style, I really love the Spurs. I think
So do
I
I.
just think it's the most beautiful basketball. Their affection for each other is so
Yeah.
obvious. They're so young. Their playing style is so cool. Like if we had to see Thunder Knicks, I would have
I would have been
vomited for
bummed.
seven
I would
days,
have been
man.
so bummed.
It
Yeah,
would have
like
been terrible.
and I love to the way not just the way Wemby plays and the way obviously he's a anatomical anomaly, but like I what I love is how in touch like he is with his emotions to be like to actually care to
Yes.
like show that you care like that's some sort of problem to people. No, it's
Yeah.
amazing. I
No,
love
it's
it.
amazing. I'm also a big Francophile. I mean, like, French is my second language. And
Sure.
so Tony Parker, I've always kept an eye on the French
Yeah.
players over the years. And I mean, the Spurs have always had the coolest culture, and,
Yeah.
and Greg Popovich was the most
Pop.
outspoken and politically cool coach. And they always had a cool international flavor and all of that stuff. Manu Ginobili, all that era of Spurs, I was really, really into it. And this is a treat to watch them play. And
Fun.
it's like, it's also like, I don't. It's just really really amazing. Defensive teams like the old Pistons teams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is like that kind of defense, but it's matched with a super cool offense at the same time. So it's like the games are ridiculous. They're so fun. Every possession
Definitely.
is interesting.
I mean, the when Wemby, took that like 30-foot 3-pointer, like my jaw dropped. Like there's literally nothing you can do because Steph Curry will do that, but you can find yourself in a way to kind of get in front of him and play defense. But he is 7'5",
Yeah.
and you can't block it.
No.
It's
I
insane.
mean, and you can see that everyone is trying to learn, like the fact that Isaiah, whatever Hardenstein or whatever his name, the
Yeah.
fact that he's having to do that push shot over and over again because
Yep.
it's like you have to come up with something because the guy is huge.
And that's why they were beating him up on
Yeah.
defense. That's
Yeah.
the only way you can stop it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited for that finals. So I take it you're not a fan of the Oklahoma City Thunder play style that people won't stop talking about.
I think, I mean, I appreciate, actually, I don't, I mean, I can't say that I appreciate the way they play, but I mean, I appreciate Alex Caruso, man, because he's a menace and he's like relentless, and that's kind of impressive to look at. But their style of play is just a bummer, and it's so
Yeah.
boring, And it's
I
like
know.
if you have Jalen Brunson against Shea doing the it'd be it'd just be just flop
You're going
hell.
to get 150 free throws in the
It'd just be
game.
such a grinder. So
Yeah.
of course you can win that way, but it's so boring.
Totally agree. Yeah. So I think it'll be a good series. In terms of the Wizards, you guys have the number one pick in the draft. Have you paid attention to kind of who the prospects are, and do you have thoughts on what they should do?
I I hope they don't trade the pick. I just think
No,
that that would
can't.
be the people keep talking about maybe that's possible. I don't think they're going to do it, but I feel like I mean, we've had, I'm trying to think, like in my lifetime, there was like, we had Kwame Brown bust, for whatever reason but John Wall was a
He was.
legitimate pick, and that was a solid era, which, had its moments, so
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that there can be, I'm curious about the Trey Young, Anthony Davis situation, like if they're going to hold on to those guys or not. But
Yeah.
I'll say this about Trey Young: he has the best nickname in basketball. Like Ice Trey
Ice
is the
Tray.
coolest. It's the
Yeah.
best. It's the
It's
best
good.
nickname I've ever heard in
And
my life.
and pairs well with the celebration of the little.
Yes, it's so good. It's so
It's
good.
very good.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can get some in the future. You can get some good matchups with the Knicks, and you can get Trey
Yeah.
Young back at the Garden. That'll be
Yeah,
some
which
fun
was
matchups.
the best thing ever. Yeah.
Um, do you know any of the kind of the top prospects who are in line for that pick? Like it seems like AJ Dubonsa is like the projected number one pick.
I think they should take him. I don't know that much about college hoops, but the little
Yeah,
I've watched from him, he looks amazing.
yeah,
And you know, I just think don't make it complicated. Just do the thing, pull the
I
trigger
agree.
on it. And, you know, I'm scared. I mean, the Wizards are cursed. There's a curse on the team. And it's like, I don't know if it's ever going to, maybe they need to change the name back. Something has to happen. But
Well, I hopefully having Anthony Davis on your team can always be a tricky situation when
yeah,
you
yeah,
hope he actually plays some of those games.
yeah.
But with this pick, you have Sar, who has actually had a nice season last season. You have Trey Young. I mean, there's definitely potential to start something nice here. So
Yeah, and Sar's
hopefully
another
it goes well.
Frenchman. I think we have two Frenchmen. We have Bilal
That's right.
Koulibaly. So we've got a pretty international thing happening, and
There you go.
it's pretty great.
The Spurs too. You guys can follow in their footsteps.
Yeah, totally.
I would love that. Yeah, amazing. So yeah, that draft's coming up. Looking forward to it. The kind of last
What's
kind
your
of
team?
question.
What's your
Well,
team?
I'm a Bulls fan.
Bulls fan. Okay.
Yeah. So we have the fourth pick. So whoever you guys don't take, I'm happy to pick up those pieces.
At four, there's going to be that's pretty good. Yeah.
I think the top four are the good spots to be, and thank God we got that fourth one. But
Yeah, yeah.
it's been a rough, couple since Derrick Rose. Basically, it's been a up and down. Management doesn't really care sort of vibe.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this pick is a turnaround for us as well. Have you seen the new proposed lottery rules that they came out with?
I sort of read about it a little bit, and I mean, all I can say is I'm glad they start next year, because it's like
Yeah.
we've really,
I know, right?
our-
It's strange because I mean, technically, it benefits a team like the Bulls who always goes to the play-in because it's like almost like a curve. Like if you're in the middle of the bad teams, then you have the best odds. So we'll see how that plays out. But
yeah, yeah. I mean,
all
but then
right, well,
you could have some bottom dwellers that just cannot.
it's true.
We'll see what
But they
you never
also,
know what the after effects will be from this kind of
I
stuff.
know.
But I mean, I mean, I respect why they did it, and the tanking is rough.
And it's hard because they have rules in place where you can't have a top 5 pick for 3 straight years, and you can't be the number 1 pick back to back years. That's tough if you're actually bad. Like, what do you do about that?
Yeah, if you're actually bad,
There's
yeah.
not much you could do.
I mean, you look at the
So
Spurs; they had like 1, 2, and 4 in like consecutive years. So it's like,
exactly. Even in the 2010s, the Cavs had the number 1 pick like 3 times, I think.
yeah, that was some freaky stuff back then.
Yeah.
That was very.
That was when Bill Simmons, went off the rails on ESPN.
Yeah.
Good times, good times. The kind of last question I'd love to ask you is a little more abstract, but if Fugazi was an NBA player,
I
who
am.
would they be?
If the band itself was an NBA player, wow. Oh,
What are the characteristics of Fugazi that might translate over?
let me brew on that for a second.
Yeah,
But I do
yeah.
think the parallels between teams and bands is a really good one because
Yeah,
it is about learning your role, you know? I mean, that's really what it
absolutely.
is. And then supporting the other, I don't know. So I feel like, that's a really good question. Because I mean, even I don't even know what position you would boil us all down to, you know? Because it's like it's hard to like.
I mean,
I
you
don't
could
know. I
pare it
feel like
down
the
to like
band is so
personality.
there's so many different personalities in Fugazi that it's
True.
like you put it together. I'm not. You get a kind of beige, you know. It doesn't really make sense. You know what I
I
mean?
mean,
Like
is there a team that you feel connected with? You know, the interactions between teams.
I just can't make the parallel. You know, I would just say like for me personally, like if I was going to be a basketball player, I think I would be Rod Strickland.
Oh, that's a fun pick. That's
Yeah,
good. Why so?
because he played with a certain kind of intensity. You know, like his big thing was like he'd eat a hot dog before the game and then he'd throw up in a trash can, and then he would go out and play his ass off. And then he also has like weird drama. Like I think he got in a fight with El DeBarge in front of an IHOP. You know, so there's like a lot of like cool stories around Rod Strickland, but there was just something about his style of play that I really appealed to me. And like that was the only saving grace for losing Rasheed Wallace was that we got Rod Strickland. And I really I feel like he's unheralded and not often mentioned,
Yeah, that's
but
perfect.
but he was really he had quite an engine, and he was the kind of gastrointestinal like mental distress thing I can really relate to. So
Perfect. Not a lot of people bring up Rod Strickland on this, so I'd love to hear it. Uh, Amazing, man. That's all I have. I really appreciate you coming on and talking basketball. You know, a lot of people talk music with you, but they don't get to hear the hoop side of you. So that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for Guy for coming on the podcast, talking Wizards a little bit, talking shop. Uh, Thanks for everyone for listening. It's been a real pleasure. Uh, if you want to keep engaging in the conversation, make sure you join our Discord. It's a great community. I really love the community we've built, and it's a great group of people over there. So get in there. It's a fun bunch. Otherwise, make sure you check back in. We are on Patreon. Just dropped a new playlist for the month of June. Got some great new finds in there. I like to try and make a playlist every month for our Patreon supporters where I can curate, curate some music, some new finds, some new tracks from, of wealth of artists. And, I know it's hard in the world of algorithms to actually find new music, surprisingly. But, I try and help out where I can and make this playlist every month. If you want to listen to that, it's on our Patreon. You can find it at patreon.com/indiebasketball. Otherwise, make sure you follow us on Instagram at indiebasketball and join the Discord. Check us out on YouTube for half-court sessions, more coming soon. And we're on Blue Sky. But that's it. Thanks again for listening to this podcast, and we'll see you next episode.